Welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here. This week we're getting Cetia, the new Crystal Warrior for War of the Visions, and I got the character review ready for everybody, so let's jump into things. For the general breakdown today, we're doing a character overview, report card and stat analysis, my general thoughts, which kind of encapsulates everything in the presentation, class and job overview, where I'll go through the abilities, and then I have a whole segment, why she's bad. For anyone that's listening to a lot of my reviews, I try to stay as objective as possible. I try to look for the positives where I see some good upside for characters. I think she might be the worst character I've ever had to review, quite honestly. I have a whole segment here called Real Talk about the Fire Vision cards and why it doesn't help her case, and then some damage calculations to kind of back up what I would hypothetically think would be her strength and why it's not. Then I'm going to go through notable vision cards, espers, and weapons. So stay tuned. This is definitely a unique review in that regard that I'm going to trash talk a little bit about a character that I don't normally do. And it hurts me because I'm a fire fan at heart. I love the concept of the element of fire. I like a lot of the characters. I've tried to make them work. It's just not feasible. Quite honestly, I don't see Cetia changing any of that. So for the general character overview, brand new fire unit. She's got the Crystal Warrior job that's unique to her. There's really nothing unique about it at all. She's also got the Viking sub-job and the Sniper sub-job. She can equip a bow, equips hat, cloth, and accessory with a move of 3, jump of 1. Totally average and straightforward. For resistances, she's 20% strong against magic, which is kind of cool, but only 5% to slash and -5s to both pierce and strike with 0 to missile. And then for the status elements, it's sleep and frostbite, which is fine, and 10% to berserk, but berserk a little more niche on the side of things. Same thing with frostbite, but overall, really nothing special here. No innate defense, no innate spear. It's kind of unfortunate, but keep going along here. For the DPS report card, her effective HP is a B- with an asterisk. It's actually worse than that. She has a buff, and we'll get into this soon, that increases her slash resistance and magic resistance by 20%. On her first turn, potentially. So, sure, if she applies that, she does get a pretty decent effective HP increase, but it's still not great. It's still a B-. It's fine. It's not great. Physical HP is still a C. Some of those minuses. She's got no defense. Magical HP, I'm going to B+ here, where, yes, she can get up to 40% magic resistance quite easily, excluding any espers or anything. So that's a starting point, but no spirit, no magic barriers, no nothing. So overall, I don't consider an anti-magic unit like I do with some other characters, but B+ for the magic side of things. For the primary stat, I'm giving her a B. 486 does sit on the high side of things here if you're looking at general attack stats. She does have a passive that can buff it up, but overall the extra 50 or 60 attack increase over some of the other characters isn't all of that noteworthy. Particularly, we consider the broader range of DPS. We're obviously just comparing to missile units here, but overall it's a B. The agility is also a B. She does have a passive that I can increase it for 12%. If you don't use that, she's just about average, maybe a point below the average for agility, but the 12% buff does at least give her a little bit of an edge. Accuracy, she's a B. She has no guaranteed hit in her kit, which is really unfortunate for the Firecast, who by and large are generally inaccurate on their own. Particularly for sniper units, you want them to be your more accurate units. Most of these other characters are fairly accurate for reasons one or the other. But overall, accuracy is a B, not the worst. Probably better than the rest of the fire units, but broad scheme of the game does need a lot of work. Evasion is a C-, straight up not an evade unit in the absolute very least. And movement is a C. Base movement of 3, jump of 1, with no passives, no abilities, no nothing to increase any of that. So it's a C overall. For passives, I'm going B-. There's a couple, good ones, but again, really straightforward. I don't think they scale well to make her very versatile in a bunch of different situations. But overall, B-. For the counter abilities, she does get an A because she does have reflex, and to me, that alone is A-worthy, despite what the other two, whatever they are, might be. And the overall kit, I'm going C+. I actually think her kit, like the actual abilities, are pretty bad. I think genuinely nothing special, nothing unique, and really underwhelming for a 100 cost unit, which has its own set of baggage when you're talking about the pull rates, the shard costs, all of that to fit her into limited cost battles and stuff. For a 100 cost unit, it makes it even worse. My final grade, C+. I think that's the lowest grade I've ever given a character in one of my reviews. So let's see if I can actually back that up. And the thing that's kind of flabbergasting, but not really, Ultima, for anybody that follows it, and this is like, obviously tier rankings are subjective to everybody. He's a JP side player that does a tier ranking. He's got her ranked as an S tier unit. You can see her right here. To be fair, I do, and there's number one, there's a handful of S tier units, so that's not special by itself. But I also do think there's a couple units here which probably are maybe slightly inflated from whether they should be S or A tier. I genuinely don't see how Cetia could be an S tier in the global side of meta. You have to remember there's some differences between us and JP in terms of we have Elena, they don't, so our light meta is different than theirs. We have Maidens of the Rose Vision cards, so our dark units are different than theirs. There's a whole bunch of tweaks that make our meta, stronger or weaker than theirs, and sure, maybe in a couple months, as our meta shifts, she'll have some more value, but like right now, for the foreseeable GL future, I have no idea how she could ever be put in that tier. We're getting to the general thoughts overall. A weird fit with the Fire cast overall. Fire's not known for their snipers. They're not known for being split out across the map. They're not known for being, by and large, they're really known as like a bulkier, brawlier turtle comp that has some thickness to them in terms of stats. So she's kind of weird in that regard. Potential status effect utility, at least. She can either have 25% chance to either stun or berserk someone, depending on the subjob, or stun/disable someone. You can't do all three, unfortunately. It's just one or the other, which is kind of limiting, and it's only 25%. So although you might 97 faith her, I personally would, considering how high her magic resistance is. I think it's okay to increase her potential incoming damage from magic sources, but I don't know why else you would have status effects in a kit like this unless you were 97 faith to increase the odds of inflicting them. And again, when you're talking about going against other physical units, that 25% really isn't all that strong when you're talking about going against other 50 faith units. So overall, I don't think that's a strong point in her kit like it is someone like Prompto, hypothetically, or even someone like More Than Merrier, who their status effects are a much larger influence on how they affect things with the hit rates and the quantity of them and things of that nature. The main job, very underwhelming. I literally don't know what makes it special. We'll get to that soon. The sniper sub job is also missing some key abilities. To me, like, a sniper needs dispel spread. That's the most important thing in their kit, where you can dispel all buffs off of a group of people. That includes tank hate, that includes attack and magic buffs, that includes any like movement buffs. That's a critical part of the sniper sub job that she doesn't have. And she is missing the ability Slow Arrow, which is move -1 to whoever it hits. Not necessarily the most impactful ability, but when you are talking about going against other enemies that have either high movement or high agility, so they get more turns as they traverse across the battlefield, you hypothetically do want to potentially slow their movement. And quite honestly, that kind of fits with Rain, who technically has a move down ability as well. So there is some potential synergy there if they went that direction, which they didn't. She does have defense break and fire imperil on the limit break specifically. Those are nice. I don't think they're game-changing. There is some overlap there with some of the other characters. Doesn't bring anything to compete with the global metas, in my opinion. Light and dark, she does absolutely nothing to make the fire cast more viable against them. She's not particularly strong to counter either one of them. Wind, maybe, but I say barely, because she does have a barrier break, which Jeume potentially could put on. She doesn't in most instances because of the meta we're in, where it's mostly, spirit-based attacks. But theoretically, yeah, barrier break. It does technically have a fair amount of, missile resist penetration and defense break. She also has re-razor move, which, more the merrier. That certainly could help. That's really it. No multi-hit, which I think is kind of sad. For characters that are on the weaker side of things in terms of attack stats, that's not the worst thing in the world when they have really strong kits or they potentially can set up other teammates with multi-hit. I'm thinking of someone like Lara Croft in particular. Tons of multi-hit. She's got none of that, so they're on that note. And then finally, probably great for niche PvE content, but that's about it, between the imperils and some of the range. But I genuinely don't see how she can compete in more broad PvP side of things. So let's get into the class job overview. Passive abilities, increased range of 2 and increased range of 1. Great. This character has 6 passives and 2 of them are just related by range. So the rest of them, fiery archery type 2, this is actually amazing. Increased agility 12%, missile resistance penetration of 40, decrease AP consumption by 25%. That gets 2 thumbs up. The rest of them, they're fine. Nothing great. Missile attack 15 and luck 12% on the Secret of the Sniper is good, but the luck she kind of needs for the accuracy. That's really it. And even then, it's not all of that impactful. And then the Viking lore, increased HP and attack is good, but again, I don't think it's all that impactful when I actually do these statistics here. And then missile resistance 15%, totally niche. That's such a not even a strong ability. I'm not even going to spend time talking about it. Counter abilities, this is the Reflex, definitely a great ability. The other two don't even need to look at. Reflex is worth an A by itself. It's at least a really good thing to have. When we get into the main job here, like, hopefully those of you that immediately look at this and then you kind of remember like what other characters' main kits look like, you look at this and you go, only 6 abilities, and there's not a lot of text and not a lot of this, not a lot of that. It's all very basic. Well, it is very basic. There's this one ability here, decrease attack for 39%. Number one, those breaks aren't super impactful, and it's limited to attack, not magic, so whatever. Flame Blessing is actually really good. That's the one I mentioned earlier, where it increases slash and magic resistance 20% for herself and range +1. I like that ability, but I don't think it's game changing. The second one, the third one here, this is a really giant AoE, kind of similar to Barrage in terms of the height and the overall AoE size, maybe just a smidge smaller. It does at least have 37 AP rather than the typical 44 AP. And this one's okay. Reduce counter chance by 100%, decrease healing power. 165% modifier is okay, so not the worst ability. Hard Bow, Tide Flame, and again, these are all Japanese translations, unfortunately. This is the Dispel Auto Revive, as well as the Stun of 25%, 175% modifier. It's fine, but again, re-raise is not something that Light is known for. They're really more known for the Courage. Obviously, Yuna has re-raise, but it's not the prevalent ability. Probably gets a little more value once Locke gets released, who does have a self re-raise on the light cast, but for now, nothing special. Area Fire, I think, is okay. It increases single target resistance for allies and increases the agility for self. Definitely a good ability, but you have to ask the question, which one of the two do you want to use? And then Broken Armor is the AoE decrease defense by 25 for targets. Good ability. Not overpowering by any means, in my opinion. We'll see why. So we get to the sub-job here. Very underwhelming. It's just a general another missile attack, 165, same modifier. This one has a chance to inflict Berserk. That's cool, but still only 25%. And quite honestly, King Mont has the ability to do that on his limit break. So although Berserk's a really strong status effect, you're putting her with someone who already very likely is going to try to use the Berserk status effect. So kind of a useless overlap there. And the Crimson Paralyze Arrow, you're not going to use in PvP, in my opinion. There's no damage on this ability, so it's not one of the ones that the AI will typically prioritize. Which means, between the main job and the sub job, she's only got, 3 or 4, actual damaging abilities. Very underwhelming. The Viking sub job, you are never, ever, ever going to use this unless it's for niche PvE content. Never. This is like Luartha, who has the soldier sub job. This exists to give her a passive and to give her a little bit of more attack on the base stats. That's it. If you are ever close enough to the enemy to have to use Drain Cyclone or maybe even Large Throw here, Knee Crush, you are too close and she is screwed. This is terrible. The third one, the Sniper sub job, again, cool defense penetration of 40 for herself and the range increase. Fine against high defense targets. I still don't think it's all that impactful, but the rest of the abilities, missing the Dispel Spread, missing the move down -1. We do have the barrier break here, so that's cool, and this is the disable chance as well. Overall, very underwhelming by what you'd even put as a sub job. Then finally, get to the limit break here. It's an AoE for 49 AP. Pretty good value in that regard. 38% fire in peril, so overall it does set up teammates nicely, but again, fire is not necessarily known for high impact damage like the other elements are comparatively. So although this is a buff for herself and her teammates, it's also something that Rain has right now, and it's not like we see Rain blowing people out of the water with fire imperils and teammates following up on it. It's just not a thing. We get into the TMR. Not a bad TMR, not a great TMR. Only one cast. That's one of the first things I always look at. It is an accessory that does have some agility, 6 spirit. That's cool. The TMR skill, again, very niche. Missile attack of 25 really only benefits herself, despite the fact that it's for allies. Luartha is the only other real missile unit, and her EX grade isn't up yet. Who even knows if she's going to be viable? So it's a very selfish TMR skill. The Restore AP is obviously nice. You're effectively going to give yourself 32 AP on turn 1 because you get 20 AP only when you max it. Remember, you have to actually spend resources to max it. If you don't, it's only 5 AP, so basically nothing. But yeah, 20 AP, and then you get half of the TP. So this could be upwards of 32 AP for her, which is cool, but I don't think she necessarily struggles for a lot of AP abilities. So fine, not impressive. And the mastery ability, defense penetration of 20 and magic resistance of 10%. So that's kind of where her magic resistance gets an extra buff up to 30%. The defense penetration is okay, but her overall damage output's still pretty low. This is the segment I really wanted to spend some time on. Real talk, fire vision cards. This is one of the reasons why I'm so down on the fire element at this time, because as it stands at the top end of the game, when you're maximizing mono element comps, vision cards are really what make or break 80% of the strength in this game. And so if we're looking at what exists for fire, and this is including all future known JP vision cards as well, right off the bat, Terra, this card is not going to come out for 3 months, so ignore it for right now. It is actually an amazing card. The other ones, I'm going to go out on a limb here that 99% of you do not have Keepers of the Crystal card. That's one of the like OG cards that came out at the very beginning of the release of this game. Fire was bad at the time. I guarantee you nobody saw that card and was like, we gotta have this. I'm also pretty sure that like 10%, if I had to guess, actually has the Final Fantasy Tactics card backs here, the deleted one. At least Scions of Haspial have had 2 reruns. This only had 1 run. And so at the time, I very much doubt that everybody maxed it. The Bringers of Shadow, the Final Fantasy XIV card, at that time, Vision cards had no pity, there was no 5-step banner, and quite honestly, there wasn't even a magic user other than Rain at the time this card came out. So I'm guaranteeing that 99% of you do not pull and max this card. Right off the bat, that's like half the Vision cards that I can tell you that like most people don't have, even at the top end, top 5 of the game. So we're going to actually look at the rest of these, why I think they're bad compared to the rest of the Vision cards. First, we're looking at Death Machine. AoE resistance of 20 to the party and crit evasion of 20 with just some very generic HP and attack stats. That's bad, particularly when you compare the other AoE cards that exist in the game. For instance, let's look at the Ibarra card that was just released. You get 20 AoE resistance, also gives you 18 magic attack, 35% dexterity, which is again, accuracy, crit hit rate. It's also got 3 agility on it. But when you talk about unit effect, pierce resistance of 10 on the Death Machine, very niche. But for lightning, you get 5 human killer and 20% spirit penetration. That's big for whoever lightning magic user you put it on. So again, Death Machine is terrible compared to this. There's more. MAX, the ice card that came out, this doesn't even fit on the screen. That's how many things are on here. You get defense, great stats, attack percentage buff if you're ice, missile resistance, HP, AoE resistance of 20 to the party, pierce attack. And remember, there's many people that have pierce attack on the ice. There's Laswell, there's Aranea, there's Victoria. You get critical rate of 25. That critical rate, 25, exceeds the 20% crit evasion on the fire card. So if you're going fire versus ice, technically the crit rate still maintains 5% for over the crit evasion that the Death Machine card gives you. Bad, comparatively bad. We're going to look next at the Encounter of Heroes. This is the Rain card. This is amazing. This actually is my favorite fire card. I don't have a single bad thing to say about it. Agility, spirit, magic, accuracy, slash resistance. It's got everything a fire unit would need. And it's magic oriented, which they desperately need. Phoenix, this card did have a time and place when it was good. Not so much anymore. Sure, fair amount of dexterity gives the unit some HP. That's fine. But magic resistance for someone particularly like Cetia is kind of overkill, who already has a ton of magic resistance. This dexterity should have been 35% dexterity, not 18% dexterity. The Firecast is way too inaccurate. That 18% really doesn't get them into that threshold of consistently hitting targets. And Pierce attack of 35, there's only 2 fire units that actually use Pierce. It's Winter Moshery and Eld. I don't really know anybody using Eld by and large. I did it for a time in the Ice meta. That was about it. And Winter Moshery, kind of niche. I'll go Phoenix. Fair, not great. Brachiosaur, this is the one that's coming out with Cetia, if not next week, the week after. This is a good card, but has nothing to do with the fire units overall in terms of what they bring. It's going to give her attack for that fire unit, for her essentially. Acquired AP and increases attack, that's cool. But for the party, agility 8%, that needs to be 15%. Fire is way too slow. That 8% is a drop in the bucket. Missile attack of 35, that's cool. She's the only missile unit other than maybe Loartha X when that comes out. But that's it. It's a very selfish card. And the single target resistance of 20, again, not what fire is known for. Rain is really an AoE type tank. King Mont is an AoE type tank. Because of their slowness and lack of vertical mobility by and large, they do tend to funnel together into the map topography. So single target resistance, fine, 20, but really has nothing to do with what fire is already good at, or at least meant to be good at. And when you compare that to, and I'm specifically the 8% agility, let's look at the Eleficaris card here. That's 8% agility, but you also get the 20 unit resist, so some overlap there. But this Pierce attack of 35 does synergize really well with Earth. You have Oberyn, Noctis has a Pierce attack, Halloween Fred is Pierce oriented. There is some legitimate strength and synergy there. It gives you 3 agility, and you look at the unit effects, HP percent, acquired AP, the same amount, that 30%, it's apples to apples here. Like overall, just a better card for what the Earth cast wants to do. Brachiosaur has nothing to do with what the Fire cast wants to do. We're not done yet though. Earth technically does have a 15% agility card. This is the Halloween Leela card where it gives you pierce resistance, again niche, but 8 spirit and 15% agility. That spirit is universal and it is applicable to the metas. And when you're talking about the stats in the card, that luck of 20% is applicable to Earth units where they are evasion heavy. So whoever gets this, that luck is a significant increase for Zazan or Ketone or Halloween Leela. It has a lot to do to improve them. And we're not done. We're going to look at the last wild card. This is 15% agility for the ice units, but it's also human killer 25 on physical attacks. Way more applicable than missile attack of the Brachiosaur. There's way more physical attackers of ice. And then if you look at the card itself, you still get acquired AP for the party of that 25%, which is equivalent to just the unit effect on Brachiosaur. You get ice attack here, you get 4 defense, just overall superior, and does way more for what the Ice Cats wants to do. So Brachiosaur, very underwhelmed with what it actually brings to the table. The Mon Leonis Vision card is straight up bad, in my opinion. The only good thing about this is a 25% HP to the party. That's it. Defense debuff resistance is extremely niche. Number one, because not every character has defense down. Most don't. But number two, all this means is you have a 20% less chance to get debuffed by it, which means there's still an 80% chance you can get your defense broken. It's basically useless. This is a terrible card in the broad scheme of the game. The Ifrit card, equally bad. There's literally only 2 effects in this card. A third if you include the ice resistance of 20%, which is very niche, and fire should beat ice anyway. So this card is like comparatively bad. So I hate to be pessimistic, but I actually can't believe in any kind of Firecast with the selection of vision cards that exist at this time. And the 3 or 4 that I blocked off at the beginning, the Terra card is really the only impactful one. The other 3, although good, aren't actually balanced or game changers to make them compete with any of the element metas. Because now we're going to get into the damage calculations, and in my head, you can ignore this text here for a moment, I'm like, okay, the fire units, they're not going to counter light. Straight up, they're not. Number 2, they're probably not going to counter dark. They didn't during the Black Rose Elena meta. They're probably still not going to for various reasons. Earth, probably not. Way too evasive, way too fast, but that's okay because Earth isn't all that prevalent anyway in global because of how strong wind is. But as I was talking about earlier, maybe there is some upside to counter wind where they are not necessarily magic oriented. They are, similar agility. They don't have any agility boosting cards. Jeume in particular does have potential shields, and More the Merrier does have re-raise, so maybe there is some opportunity here to counter wind. Well, I actually wanted to do like a stress test to try to figure it out, and I built a cast of 3 that I think would be a viable fire cast. I have Cetia essentially with the passives that I would optimally put on her for balance, offense, and stats. I do have the Phoenix card on Mon. I have the Rain card on Glacial here. I think that's a pretty top tier comp that you would probably put together. And so looking at CTA stats here, I did the same thing for the wind units where I said, what's the average, top tier wind cast here you put here? And although I have More the Merrier, you could theoretically put in Winter Loartha and have her vision card, really any wind vision card. It doesn't change Jeume's stats all that much for the purpose of this analysis. And I decided to have Cetia use her defense break ability, her level 120 EX job ability, and because that should be relatively impactful. And so I actually also assumed, okay, T1, or turn 1, let's assume she uses her TMR for that 25% missile attack up, just to, give a hypothetical buff scenario. And Jeume has 63 defense here. She also has 10% area resistance and 10% missile resistance. And I'm curious, how much damage does Cetia do to Jeume? 3,200. Now, let me put that into context. Jeume has over 11,000 HP. You mean to tell me that Cetia is going to do 3,200 damage to a character that's got 11,000 with a potential healer right there beside her? Let me also put this into perspective too. That's not including Jeume having the Protect buff on her turn 1. If Jeume uses Protect, 2,400 damage. That's so embarrassingly low. I actually have no idea how you could possibly even put a dent into things. I literally don't know what impact that would have at all on the team fight. And so when we talk about notable vision cards for her, the Brachiosaur is literally the only card. I quite honestly don't know what else you would put on her. Where obviously it's tailor-made for her, but what else are you going to put on there for attack-oriented fire cards? The Ifrit card, again, not a strong card. Death Machine card, fair, still a relatively not a strong card in the broad scheme of things, and does kind of go counter to what she wants to do, which is stay back and kind of like shoot from afar. Overall, I just don't know how in the world you could possibly optimize her with these vision cards. The notable Espers, at least there's some good Espers in my opinion. The Brachiosaur one is a really great Esper for her. Phoenix and Death Machine are both great in that they give her defense, maybe some missile resist, they give her fire attack potentially. Odin I do like because it does have a lot of agility and the missile resistance and the slash resistance. But other than that, like the Espers you kind of play with, I don't really think there's any one Esper outside of these four that really jettisons her to any other tiers. And then we're talking about the weapon optimization. There actually is a handful of them. One of them is I'm going to call it the Flame Bow for now. That it's going to give her extra HP, 15% for only 3 turns though. Missile attack of 15, which is cool but pretty average. The stats on this are okay. The accuracy build is nice, but 111 attack is pretty low. The only other comparable bows are the Platinum Bow, which gives defense penetration, does skew higher on the attack side overall, but again, really just a decision whether or not you're going against high defense enemies. You know, if I put the Platinum Bow against Jeume, would the damage be higher right there? Probably, but I don't know about how much so. Probably not a ton more. The Killer Bow, almost apples to apples. The only benefit here is the critical rate, but you're basically overlapping the missile attack, so no real upside there in terms of being better or worse. I think the Flame Bow is objectively better. And the only other bow, which I actually do see as like maybe kind of interesting, is the Corwell TMR, where gives you 20 accuracy. It does have some great attack on it, and at least gives you like a 20% chance to decrease the evasion rate of 40% for 3 turns of whoever you're attacking. So from that perspective, like sure, maybe that one like maybe has a time and place, but that's a real stretch. To me, in order to make Cetia actually viable and make fire viable by and large, they need either the next global exclusive unit to be a great fire unit like Ibarra, Zazan, Dwayne. Like these characters that we get in global exclusives are typically very, very strong. They need that. Or a Valentine's unit who also would have to be comparatively strong. And quite honestly, not just another unit, but another vision card as well. The vision card is so bad, they absolutely need to have another one. So that's my review in a nutshell. This is strange for me to kind of trash on a character so hard. Hopefully these points make sense though. Hopefully you're seeing the same things I'm seeing. I'm thinking of hypotheticals in which it's worth it. Because again, it's not just is it worth it to like build her, but this is a 100 cost unit, which means you have drastically reduced rates on the banners. There's no 9 step up banners for the Crystal Warriors, so you don't get all the benefits of some of the tickets and stuff that you would get on the 9 step. So overall, if you're talking about like cost and benefit, I literally don't see any possible argument that would be worth attempting to try to pull her and max her and build her and use her. I just don't see how it's even worth your time. So I'm sorry to say that. I'll end it on that note though. Would love to see your reactions in the comments below if I'm wrong on anything, or if you hard disagree, or if you have insight to something at JP that, you know, maybe there is a hard meta shift in a couple months, but the way I see it, water in like 4 months is going to be like broken strong. That even when Terra comes out with Final Fantasy VI, there's going to be a brand new water magic tank. There's going to be another very strong water unit after that. I just don't even see how fire could potentially compete, because ice also isn't going to get that strong in the next couple months, at least not projected right now. It's going to be good, but it's not going to be meta defining where, oh my goodness, we need to build fire units to counter them. I don't see that happening. I'll stop there. Thanks guys for listening. Hopefully this was informative. For those of you that do pull, have fun with her. Hopefully you do get some value, and would love to hear the feedback once you get to use her more. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all soon.